Hello, or should I say aloha. We're going to Hawaii. Yes, we are going to Hawaii. My husband and myself and our two children, ages 6 and 7, are going to Hawaii for a full 2 weeks. It's 14 nights, but then our last day is like, we don't fly out till 11 p.m. So we have like another full day and a bit to kill in Hawaii. So this video is kind of just outlining our plans for the trip, what we're doing, where we're going. So we're going to start off by answering some of the most common questions that we get when we tell people we're going to Hawaii. And the first is obviously, which island are you going to and when are you going? So when you're seeing this, we're actually back already. So we went November 2nd. I'm filming this ahead of time, but November 2nd, we'll get back home on the 17th. And we are flying into the island of Maui, and we're going to spend some time on Maui, and then we're going to hop over to Kauai and spend a few days there, come back to Maui, spend a couple more days, and then fly home. So it's a bit of a, bit of a back and forth, but that's just the way that it worked out. If I were to do it again, probably would try not to go back and forth, but rather just spend X amount of time on one island, go to another island, and fly home from there. With the cost and just the logistics of it, it just didn't really make sense this time. So that's what we're doing. Okay, but here's the big thing. People always ask, where are you staying, or what part of the island are you staying on? And the truth is, we are not exactly. We are going to be camping, tent camping, all around Maui and in a few spots in Kauai. So what happened was, or how this came to be, was I just like on a whim looked up flights from Arizona to Maui or to Hawaii, whichever island, I can't remember at the time, and they were dirt cheap. They were like $300, and then I was like, oh well, I wonder what flights are from home to Maui, and they were I think at that time like $500, $550 or something like that. So we kind of kept watching them, and this was like late winter. We started thinking about it, talking about it, and the kids have wanted to go. I think just because my husband has been and has said it's so awesome. So it was like on our list that one day we will take our kids to Hawaii. But then I stumbled on these cheap flights. That's return flight, right? 500 Canadian. So then we really started considering it, and I ordered a bunch of books from the library about Maui and Hawaii and started planning like a trip. And then we finally decided, like, are we going to do this? So I can't remember when I actually bought the tickets. Actually, it might have even been July. It was before the fires. Anyway, before the fires, and we booked our tickets and we were excited. We were going. And then it was like time to, look into things a little bit further. When I first started looking into going to Maui, the hotels were so costly and prohibitively costly. We could not afford to stay in hotels for 2 weeks in Hawaii. Like, I think they started, when we were looking, they started at about $400 a night Canadian, and we couldn't find any Airbnbs cheaper than that, or not cheap enough that we could, it would be feasible. And if we're going to Hawaii, we want to spend more than just a few days. So started looking into campsites. Sure enough, you can camp. Maui has more than Kauai, I would say, and we just kind of made like a route of where we want to go and what we want to see, and then we booked campsites accordingly, keeping in mind that the islands are small, like much smaller than Saskatchewan. So to drive from one side of the island to the other, even for a day trip, is definitely doable. You do drive a lot slower because the roads aren't like like they are here, wide open and lots of room and little traffic, and you're also going through lots of towns. So you do have to drive slower, but the actual like distance is not very far. So keeping that in mind, we booked our campsites. There's a few nights that we double up, and then there's a few nights that were just like one-offs. So the plan is we will arrive late at night, so it's actually going to be 1 a.m. our time, what we will be feeling like, and it's going to be 9 p.m. Hawaiian time. So for that reason, we didn't want to have to worry about setting up a tent or anything like that. I looked into hostels, but they don't really take kids, and again, being at night, and we'll have a rental vehicle, and we'll just be getting in and be jet lagged, and everyone's gonna be grouchy. I just know it. We wanted something just super simple, so we actually, the first vehicle we rented is going to be a minivan, a Dodge Caravan, and we're just going to sleep in that in the Walmart parking lot. We've slept in our van before. We have a Dodge Caravan, and we find it quite roomy and comfortable enough. My concern will be, I guess, safety of being in a Walmart parking lot. We've never slept in a public place with the kids, so, you know, fingers crossed that all goes well. I think it should be. I have faith that it will be good. But that brings up, you know, are we renting a vehicle? That also comes up, and I think almost all, if not all, then definitely most people who go to Hawaii do rent vehicles, and we are doing that as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to be renting a van for the first few nights of our trip, and then we're going to trade that in for a Jeep, because Hawaii, we need a Jeep, and then we're going to turn that in, fly to Kauai, and we'll rent another Jeep, a different type of Jeep there, and then when we come back to Maui, we will have just like a smaller SUV. So that being said, after our first night on Maui in the Walmart parking lot, super glamorous, we will the next day get whatever supplies we need, and then we will head to our first campsite. And we are spending 3 nights at this one, and it is actually a privately owned campground. So it's owned by this family who also has a school, which is really, really interesting, and I'm really excited to chat with them and kind of learn about what they have going on there. It's also a communal farm, and it is by the town of Haiku. So we're going to spend 3 nights there and kind of just explore the Paia area, probably drive down to Wailua, Kihei, do the aquarium and kind of that southern little bit of island there where there's lots of beaches, and catch some surfing maybe on the northern shore, farmers markets, botanical gardens, whatever we can find in those areas for those few days. Then we're gonna, like I said, trade the van in for a Jeep and hit the road to Hana. And this is just going to be magical. We want to take our time doing this. So where we're staying at Haiku is kind of part way on the road to Hana. So we'll have explored that section already, and then we will explore from Haiku to, or Paia to just outside of Hana. We're staying at another hip camp there. I tried to get in at Wai'napanapa, but I didn't get in time. I did not book far enough in advance for that one, and they were all filled up, which is kind of disappointing, but I mean, everything happens for a reason. So we ended up booking at this hip camp that everything is set up for you, so we just have to pull in and we can pretty much crash. They really just set up for like a couple in each tent, but because we have the kids, we'll need to bring in probably an extra one of our mattresses and pillows and whatever we need, but for the most part they're set up. So that's kind of exciting to have that available. And a little bit later in the video I'm going to talk about the different campgrounds and kind of the amenities that they offer as a whole, because we do get that question a lot as well. So after we drive the beautiful road to Hana, we're going to stay that night at the hip camp by Hana, and then the next day we will explore the Hana area and Wai'napanapa, and then we will drive down to Kipahulu. And I really don't think I'm pronouncing these properly. I will link the campsites down in the description box for anybody looking to maybe check out where we were, or maybe find on your own trip. So Kipahulu is part of the Haleakala National Park. It's like the southern section, and you access it at a different point than the main park. So there's different hiking trails there and beach views and things like that. So we're going to stay 2 nights there and kind of explore that area, and there's some farms kind of in and around there, and it's close to Hana, so it's not, you know, a big driving. We don't need to spend a lot of time in the car that day, and just be probably a lot of hiking. There's not really, I don't think, a lot of beaches in that section. The next night after Kipahulu, we are going to Hosmer Grove. So we were originally going to stay 2 nights here, and then we decided to stay 2 at Kipahulu and 1 at Hosmer Grove instead. We'll get to the reason in a minute, but with the national park, you can only stay a consecutive of 3 nights in their park. They have a very limited amount of campsites, so I think it's just to make sure that nobody's living there, because they are very low cost campsites, and that everybody kind of gets a turn. So Hosmer Grove is in the main area of the Haleakala National Park on the Haleakala volcano. So it is about 7,000 feet up from sea level, 7,000 feet elevation. You camp right there on the side of the mountain or the volcano. And with our camp site, like our fee or whatever, we actually get access to the sunrise the next morning at the summit, the top of the peak of the volcano. So this is like a huge tour, tons of people. You have to book in advance to get these spots, and it's very competitive to try and get them. You have to get up super early and get to the top, but with our campsite, it just comes with it, which is wonderful. Like, we don't have to pay for a tour, we don't have to try and get in on the bookings or anything like that. We're able to just get up in the morning fairly early. We'll probably pack up ahead of time and then just drive the short distance up to the rest of the mountain. I think it's just under 10,000 feet, and then we'll get to watch a beautiful, beautiful sunrise. And I told my husband, even if nobody else wants to go, I will go by myself. You guys can stay and pack up, and I'll pick you up when it's over. Because I am really, really excited to see that and see the sunrise over the clouds, and I just envision it being really magical. So I'm excited for that. And we're going to spend as much time there as we can, but we will be a little bit rushed. But we have to get back to the main city for the airport, because our plane leaves at 11 a.m. I believe, over to Kauai. So the first leg of our trip on Maui is going to really focus on the east side of the island, the bigger side of the island, the national park, the road to Hana, the more farmlandy side. Not as much of the beachy stuff. I mean, obviously we're in Hawaii, we're definitely going to hit up some beaches, but it's going to focus kind of more on that eastern side. Then we hop over to Kauai, and we're spending 4 nights on this island, and we have a lot to pack in. So the first day, we only have about half a day here, and it's just going to be kind of exploring the Lydgate, the town of Lahu and Lydgate area, probably more Lydgate than Lahu. And we are going to be camping at Lydgate that night. And then in the morning, the next day, the very first thing, we have a river tubing excursion booked. And I'm also super pumped for this, because it goes through the old plantation canals that they used for irrigation. And I think just like the history, like I'm so into that, in history and ancestral, like just living and being able to feel all that energy. So I'm really excited for that. Actually, my husband is excited too. So after that excursion, then we'll probably just tour a little bit more around Lahu and kind of down into the southern part of the island, and we're going to be staying that night at Salt Pond Beach. Not really excited to stay here. The reviews are not great, to be honest. I'm hoping that we, have no bad experiences. It just kind of was the best option for wanting to stay on that part of the island, so that the next morning we can go do Waimea, that road going north into kind of the center of the island, and explore that area. And then we'll drive back down and around through Lahu and Lydgate and up along the east side of the island and coming up along the north side, and we are going to then stay 2 nights at Anini Beach, and kind of just explore that northern coast all around there, Napali and all the other areas there. There's some lighthouses, there's mini golf, there's more botanical gardens. So there's a lot to see on the island of Kauai as well. And I think right now, like before we go, just seeing things on paper, I almost think we could have spent like 10 days probably on each island to fully experience them. But it is what it is now, and I know we're gonna make the most of it. So then after our second night on Anini, then we have to be at Lahu to catch our plane again, and that one I think leaves at like 9:45 in the morning. So we get back to Maui around 11 or so, and then we have 2 more nights there before we fly home. And those 2 nights we are going to be spending at Olowalu. And this is actually, if you've kind of looked into like camping on Maui, this may have come up with their tentalos. So they're like yurts, but they're in the shape of tents, more triangular. I mean, it would have been cool to stay in those, but we didn't really see the point in paying a little extra for that, so we are just renting their basic campsites. There are other options in this area. We also considered a place kind of in the center. It was a hip camp, but it didn't have great reviews, and I don't know, Olowalu was really nice, and it was made more sense because at the time we were planning to explore Lahaina. So we're staying 2 nights at Olowalu, and that'll be kind of just like the last bits of exploring that east side of the island, and probably down into like Kihei and Wailua and all those really nice beaches down on that south, I don't know what you call it even. It faces southwest, that coast, southwest coast, I guess. Yeah, just exploring that and the Yao Valley, and probably go and see the golf course. Apparently that clubhouse, or they probably don't call it a clubhouse, but the big building at the golf course was apparently a Frank Lloyd Wright design, not to be used as a golf course, but for a home. And I think Marilyn Monroe was one of the celebrities that wanted to use this design, and then another rich person bought the design, and it never was made into a home, but then the golf course purchased the design and had it expanded to scale and repurposed as to build their golf course. So anyway, my husband did go to school, like did some architecture classes. We're both kind of into that kind of stuff. Anyway, it'll just be cool to see that if we can, kind of explore that area. As for Lahaina, so yeah, that's another question we get, is about the fires, and does it affect our trip? Because we had booked our trip long before the fires had started, and we were quite nervous for a little while there at the beginning, not knowing what was going to happen, knowing what we know from at home, all the fires that happen around here and how smoky it gets. We were concerned about that, but from everything we could find online, it sounded like, oddly enough, the only area that was affected was actually the town or the city of Lahaina, and the rest of the island seemed, fine. So we decided to go ahead with our trip. Well, first and foremost, we are obviously just completely devastated for the people who lost their homes and their businesses, and the amount of people who lost their lives as well. And it's terrible. It's a terrible disaster, and you don't wish that on anybody, obviously, and it kind of gave us mixed emotions about still going on our trip. But like I said, from what we read and found online, everything was still kind of business as usual, other than in that part of the island. And our airline wasn't going to be offering any refunds or anything like that based on the date of our trip. So we did decide to go ahead with our trip. Had we been staying in hotels or Airbnbs, I think we may have felt worse about continuing our trip, or even canceled our trip, because we didn't want people in need to be out of a home because we were vacationing. Since we're staying in campgrounds, and it's so far after the fires. I think everybody should be kind of, hopefully everyone has a safe place to stay, and our staying in the campgrounds isn't taking away from like a bed that they need. I know I'm probably not saying this the way that I'm feeling, but basically we feel comfortable still going because we plan to immerse ourselves in the culture and support the locals and really not use it as like tourism. I mean, obviously it's tourism and we want to support the tourism industry for their island, but we don't want to be exploiting the people or the culture or their land. So our intentions are pure, I guess is what I'm saying. And then selfishly, of course, we are just definitely disappointed that we weren't able to see Lahaina before it burned and see all the history there, the rich history and the culture that was Lahaina. My husband has been before, but I think he was 16, and I mean, how much does a 16-year-old boy remember of culture and history? So of a different place. So that's where we're at with that. Our son, his one thing he really wanted to do was go in the submarine, and unfortunately the submarine charters were at Lahaina and they are no longer offering tours, so he's pretty disappointed about that, again, selfishly. So that's kind of the gist of our trip and what it's going to look like, or what do we think it's going to look like based on what we have booked in our little paper planning. So when we tell people that we're camping, we get questions about like, where are you going to eat and where are you going to shower and what about your clothes? That is all pretty much just living, right? We will support roadside stands and markets. I am so excited for fresh fruit and just the beautiful bounty that the island of Maui will offer us. So we will also eat out too, but the campsites that we are staying at have cooking, like barbecue grills that we can use. Some of them have kitchens, communal kitchens. And then we are also only taking carry-on bags. So we're going to be packing quite minimally, so we will have to do laundry. I'm thinking of twice. I think I'll probably do laundry twice while we're there. And that's just going to be, it's not a big deal to just go find a laundromat and do laundry. So it's all these questions that until you think about them, you think like, well, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna do that? And then it's like, you really get thinking about them. It's like, well, it's actually not really a big deal, Showering, almost all the campgrounds have showers. We're pretty laid back people, so I don't stress about that kind of stuff at all. The other big question we get when we tell people we're camping on Maui is, are you taking a tent or are you buying one there? And we actually went back and forth on this a lot of times. And I think if we were planning to just stay on one island or wherever we were going, if we were just staying in one place, we would probably just buy a tent down there and then probably leave it there, or rent one. You can rent tenting gear too. However, because we are hopping back and forth on the islands, we did decide to try and take our own tent. So we have 2 tents and we decided to take the smaller of the 2, obviously. It's technically a 4-person tent, and I think it's rated as a 6-person tent, and that means like 6 bodies lined up. Anyway, we can take that. We were able to get it in a carry-on duffel bag. The wild card was the poles, right? They're so long even when they're folded up, but on a diagonal we can get them in this duffel bag, and we have a couple other things of our camping gear in that duffel bag, and that's it. It's just the tent and these few things, and it works. So fingers crossed. Everything I read online says we should get through no problem with a tent in our carry-on. However, we could not take the pegs, so the stakes that go into the ground, so we will have to purchase those 2 or I guess 3 times once we're there. But you can get them at dollar stores for, you know, very little money. So that's not, you know, the cost of that is very minimal compared to having to either put our tent in a carry-on. And then the rest of our gear pretty much fits. We did purchase some new things. I'm gonna have a video coming up about, you know, all the things we purchased for our trip. But yeah, we're being pretty minimal and hoping just like this simple, beautiful life where we're immersed in the Hawaiian landscape and we don't really have any worries other than, you know, where our children are and is it gonna rain today? I don't know, like we're just so excited to live this way for 2 weeks and kind of have like this very low stress. I mean, our lives right now are very low stress, but like a super low stress life. And yeah, I'm excited to share it too. If there's any questions you might have about our trip or about Maui or Kauai specifically, let me know in the comments and I will try to answer them. This video is going up once we're back already, so it's not like I can like find out while I'm there, but maybe I came across what your question was. Or if you have any video ideas that you would like me to address, I can try and do that too. I do have several planned, so yeah, and we're just like so excited. I'm filming this 1 week from when we fly out. The countdown is on, lots to do. The push was on to get the preserving done, and now it's like I want to deep clean my house. I have a couple sewing things I want to do for the trip, and finish packing, and then we're off. And there's Halloween in there, and yeah, so there's a lot going on, but I think we're gonna pull it off and we're just going to enjoy the peace and solitude that much more. We have not been on a plane for 5.5 years. We don't really remember what it's like to fly internationally. We haven't flown internationally in 10 years. Gosh, yeah, it's been that long. So we don't even remember like what do we do customs right away, or is that on our connecting flight, or is it when we land in Hawaii? Like we don't remember any of this stuff. So we kind of don't even remember what to expect. The kids were really, really small. They were both under 2 the last time we flew. So it's going to be interesting how that goes and how they do on a really long flight. Yeah, it's just, I don't even worry or stress about any of that because I know it'll just be what it'll be. And I mean, like 2 solid weeks, so that's all in close quarters, is definitely probably going to have its share of hiccups and high stress moments, but for the most part it's going to be a true vacation and just totally enjoying being together and being in a beautiful place of the earth and seeing the effect that has on us. But that's really all I have to say, and the rest is coming soon, so stay tuned. I'll try and get them out fairly quickly and then get back to just like regular life. If you're going anywhere this winter, I hope you enjoy yourselves too, and if you've been to Hawaii or you're going to Hawaii, leave me some comments down below. Maybe we were at some of the same places. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!